Two things from like the very beginning that I noticed that was like so WCW it hurt.
Thankfully, I have these guys to talk like this because I'm just like I'm not as intellectual about this stuff.
John, just because you're wearing Ric Flair's robe doesn't mean you have to be senile, okay?
Did you have the famously extremely comically long cigar?
It was one of those, it's kind of like, WCW.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Attitude Era Wrestling Review Podcast, where tonight we will be reviewing WCW Fall Brawl War Games 1997, live from Salem, North Carolina. We're in Horseman country tonight, and boy, is this one hell of a show. Whew, it's something all right. But of course, you know me. I am your two-time reigning defending armchair Booker of the Year, finalist for 3. And of course, I'm always, except he's going to be on assignment after tonight, but more on that later, is my tag team partner, the man with the velvet vocal cords, Arnold. How are you tonight?
I'm scared. Didn't know anything about an assignment. Oh, but I'm doing fantastic. Doing fantastic.
Yeah, I'll tell you more about your assignment later. You're going to be going for a couple weeks, so just to let you know,
Whether you want to or not.
whether you want to or not, you and Vince are going on an assignment, and then you're going to go riding motorcycles with Eric Bischoff. So, yeah,
I don't know. Is the bike coming from Hogan?
yes, the bike is definitely from Hogan. It's a gift.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to brag about that for the next month or so.
Well, no, then he found out you're black and he took it back. So never mind.
Good point. I didn't want you to be your brother for real, brother. Let me stop.
All right. But we are not alone tonight. We have not one, not two, but 3 guests tonight. We have the trio from hell, maybe? Trio from somewhere?
From hell. Wow, that's
Is that the red shirt?
from parts on. We prefer to call it parts unknown.
Trio from parts unknown. I was trying to think of something fancy, and from hell was the first thing I came from. But no, it is the trio from the Thunder Buddies podcast. And we have Radley. How are you tonight?
Oh, I am fantastic. By the way, my parts are quite known, ask my lady. But either way, I'm very happy to be here tonight. And I'm going to enjoy this great show. I think it's a WCW pay-per-view of some sort. I've forgotten the year and the date. I'll figure it out later.
Well, we're not. Well, I don't know why you've already watched it. We're just going to sit here and watch it tonight, right?
No,
That's what we do. That's what we do at Thunder Buddies.
That's what we do at Thunder Buddies.
Wait, this is not Thunder Buddies. Hold on. Hold the
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah, I know it's not Thunder Buddies because I can see John.
And we also have with us tonight Wade. Wade, how are you tonight?
I'm okay. I'm pretty good. I mean, I'm not watching WCW right now, which is always a plus. And the weekend's over, and that was a trip, so we're starting over. We're starting over fresh. It's a new Monday.
Yeah, you were telling us you had a hell of a weekend, so this ought to be a little better. And joining them, I guess since they can see him tonight in the Flair robe, which you guys can't see, but it's John. John, how are you today?
I'm awesome. Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate the kind gesture.
Yeah, this is our first collab between podcasts. This is the first time the Thunder Buddies have ever been invited somewhere, probably for good reason.
Might be the last.
Might be the
We'll see.
last.
Well, I don't know. Well, we'll see. We'll have to see, but you can't be.
Disco Inferno once referred to us as wrestling geniuses. So
Yeah, he somewhere saying something along those lines to us too. But anybody that hates that Birdbeak dumbass is always welcome on my show. So
I've only wished death on him every episode of Thunder from 98 into 99 so far. So
I like you. You'll do. You can stick around and come back anytime you want, as long as you repeat that phrase. All right, but we open up tonight's show with the 4 Horsemen NWO package because, of course, they are going at it and War Games tonight. And we've seen the build-up. You've listened to the build-up. And now we finally get the payoff. And on commentary tonight we have Shivani, Tanae, and Heenan, which seems to be our new pay-per-view broadcast. I guess they've kind of dropped Dusty, which kind of makes me sad a little bit, but I love Heenan and Tanae. So it's a nice give and take.
I do love Dusty on commentary because he says stuff that is just like not words.
Oh, him calling a
this day-
cruiserweight match is my
Yes.
guilty pleasure.
To this day, I can't watch a match and not like if someone gets punched in the stomach, my first thought is, oh, hit him right in the belly willy. I think of that every time, and I can't not think about it every time.
That's
Or-
me anytime anybody's in the corner just getting waylaid on. It's like, oh, it's a clubbering going
It's a
on.
clubbering.
Blubbering.
I love it.
I
You got a
love me some,
bicycle.
I love me some Dusty Rhodes.
Yes.
But yeah, so War Games, still relatively, well, not relatively, it's been around for a while, but
A decade.
yeah, been around for, I said that wrong.
This is the last one before they ruin it with
Yeah.
all the rule changes too.
Yeah.
Mm.
True.
Yeah, that's where I was trying to get to. Yeah, this was the last pure War Games before they just put it in the toilet and took a big dump on it and said, yeah, we don't need this anymore. And then it went away for, God, a long time, didn't it?
They had one in 2000 that really you can't call War Games. That's kind of a lie. And another net, you got NXT.
I was like,
Yeah.
NXT.
I just forgot about the one in 2000. Yeah.
We all tried to forget.
Yeah. Well, I think we all tried to forget
this-
WCW 2000.
Guys, the historian over here. Radley watched WCW to its bitter end.
So I'm used to being on the wrong side of history. I was a Sega kid instead of a Nintendo kid. I watched Digimon instead of Pokemon, and I watched Nitro as a child all the way to the last episode. So
Yeah. He's a borderline
unfortunately,
psychopath.
Yeah.
The other day we went to a restaurant and this is not even fake. We sat down at Buffalo Wild Wings and he goes, "Can I get a Mr. Pibb?"
Pib Extra. Thank you very much.
In the
A
year
Pib
of our
Extra.
Lord 2022, this man sat down in a restaurant and asked for a Mr. Pibb.
Do they still make Mr. Pibb?
They do, but it's
The girl in
Not
the
at
restaurant
Buffalo
looked
Wild
like
Wings.
he asked her for something like he was speaking the language from the video game The Sims. Like it wasn't even like words.
Oh,
Oh,
Well-
my goodness.
well, feel free if for a history lesson, if something pops up that you need to clarify, you go right ahead because
He'll know.
Oh, I will.
oh, absolutely, yeah, because I'll either just make it up and hope nobody notices or just gloss over it. I've been known to do either. Depends on what mood I'm in. But speaking of moods, we start in one tonight. Our first match, and looking at the card, I believe this is probably the one I would have started with. It is the Cruiserweight title match with Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Jericho. And this is one of the matches of this card I was actually looking forward to when they, looked it up. And can I say I wasn't disappointed? Because
It was good. It was a really, really hot opener.
yeah,
Oh,
this
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
And-
before the bell even rang, I think we got an Eddie Sucks chant and love it. The crowd was already into it. I mean, it's North Carolina in the mid 90s.
Two things from like the very beginning that I noticed that was like so WCW it hurt. One, first of all, the weird thing to me and like we talked about this because the three of us watched it together actually. And one of the things that like threw me for a loop is if you were looking at the graphics on the screen, it called it a title return match, which I had never heard before. But I guess they were just saying that it was a rematch for the title. But it was so weird to see it listed that way because like I never see that like it's a title return match. That's not a phrase anyone uses these days.
Yeah, it's a very old school term.
And then Eddie
For
came
sure.
out, and immediately the graphic on the bottom of the screen referred to him as Harlem Heat. And I was like, we're in prime WCW time. We're killing it right off the bat. Great
Yep.
job.
They meant to say Harlem Latino Heat, and
Yeah,
they just
yeah.
ran out of
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
But yeah, this one, I would say it started slow and then really just picked up in the back, like third. It got really good as it went, but it started off slow and let the crowd get into it. And then they were doing a lot of crazy stuff at the end of that match.
Yeah, my very first note was this is a very slow start. So, and I'm all. I mean, for this kind of match, especially with these two. I think that was the way to go instead of just coming out and going 100 miles an hour right off the bat. I mean,
It's
they could have.
It's also strange to see a white meat babyface Chris Jericho, which we don't get very long in WCW. Everyone remembers TV champion Chris Jericho, conspiracy theory, debuting on Raw. Like, that's the Chris Jericho we get forevermore. This one, like Lionheart Chris Jericho, kind of ends right around here. And even though Jericho brought it back as a gimmick now, it's not the same. He's still a heel, obviously. So this is a very unique era for Chris Jericho that we'll never see again.
Mhm.
And he has to use his athleticism in a way that he doesn't have to later when he's doing a lot of character work. So it's interesting to see him push himself a lot more. This match is fantastic because it's two guys really pushing themselves. And Jericho does work hard, but in different ways within 6 to 8 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. Because you look at this match in particular. Well, not really even this match. These two workers in particular. I mean, you got Eddie Guerrero. I mean, the Guerrero name is synonymous with wrestling. Like Eddie grew up pretty much between the ropes. You have Jericho, big wrestling fan growing up, went to the Heart Dungeon, train. Just you can tell that they both love their craft. And for a cruiserweight match to start off the way it did, where it's kind of like, filling out process, we're kind of like, to me, that was good psychology in terms of the ring work, because it's like you guys said, I mean, usually when you hear WCW and cruiserweight in the same sentence, you're expecting zing, zing, zing. And it's like a 5-minute match.
For us, it was clear that like for the first several minutes of the match that they were going on the fly. You could tell because they were just kind of feeling out the crowd and seeing what they liked, what they didn't like. If something they liked, they would go into it a little bit more. If it wasn't, they wouldn't. And then they hit a point where they were doing some really crazy stuff that like nobody else on the show was doing. Specifically, like a couple of things I noticed was that like Snake Eyes on the outside on the apron, where like he lifted him up and fell to the floor and dropped him on the ropes over his head.
That was
crazy. I've never like that's not a spot anyone does now. Eddie also took the biggest German suplex from Chris Jericho in that match. Like it looked like from the old N64 games where they would release and the guy would just go flying through the air and land on the back of his head. It was huge. They really built to those big spots at the end of the match that were big.
Mm-hmm.
Also, from a booking standpoint, Eddie Guerrero was just United States champion a couple months earlier. So the cruiserweight title still doesn't feel like a low card title where it's just the luchadors, like Dean Malenko was just champion. Rey Mysterio, I believe, had a quick run already. Now we're at Jericho. Now we're at Eddie. Next month is literally Eddie versus Rey in probably the best cruiserweight match on American soil in years. So like the cruiserweight title feels exciting, and this is the time where Bischoff and Sullivan are booking it as the exciting match you have to open the show with or early on in the show to get the crowd going. These guys built that, and you can see it right here. We're literally seeing the beginnings of that.
John,
that
do you have
people
any notes
still remember to this day.
Talk over you.
That's all right.
No, I was gonna say. Luckily, like I can't. Thankfully, I have these guys to talk like this because I'm just like I'm not as intellectual about this stuff. My notes. So I just wrote down some quick things after everything, and I kept note of it. And for this one, I put holy moly guacamole, and I gave it a B plus. So
I think that says it all right there.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to point out that we didn't touch on is the finish was a little awkward. When they went for that like reversal off the top, Eddie landed kind of high at the angle. It was the angle that looked weird. When they showed the replay angle of it, the replay actually made it look fine. But the angle of the main camera, Eddie landed weird. It looked like he took the bump and then just stood up. And then that led into the actual finish. But other than that, like the whole match was clean and really good. I think I gave it an A-. Like it was a great opener. Like I can't knock it.
Yeah, I want to say I went B plus just because, like you said, it's one of the very few times that a slow-mo moment actually made the match look better. I can't think of another time where that's happened other than like a missed spot or something, like on camera, a missed spot. So yeah, that was a little funky at the end, but we're talking about perfectionists here. They probably had a 5-star classic at a house show that we never saw, and this just happened to be one where they slipped on the top rope. So B+ for me.
Yep. Arnold.
I coughed and forgot to hit unmute. So yeah, we're gonna try that again. Yeah, looking down the card, what else are you gonna open with? I mean, you have two great performers. These guys almost felt like about 20 minutes, give or take.
Yep, 17-19 is what I have on here.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, it's like, and even that right there, especially with the cruiserweight belt at this point, WCW, it's not one of these things where it's like, well, you gotta need a card and then get the belt and just go out there and just slap each other for a bit. Like, it doesn't have that vibe about it.
Yeah.
All in all, like, outside of the ending, this match was just great, top to bottom. One thing, and I think this is just me being Eddie Guerrero mark, would have been nice to kind of start to see a few more hints of that cheeky cheater Eddie in this one. I mean, he went clean, okay, but it'd have been nice to see what we see later on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the most we got of that was like him begging off a few times, but that was about it.
He hasn't.
I will say this: I usually appreciate when the heel wins clean or somewhat clean, or something direct like that, where they can say they are the actual champion. They didn't just hit a guy with a bell and pin him or whatever. Because then when Ray beats him, it feels more important. That kind of deal.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I like the fact that he did straight up win. He was just kind of a dick about it.
Yeah,
that works for me.
Yeah, that works.
I don't like heels cheating in blow off matches on pay-per-view. It like you said, it cheapens the next one.
Right.
This one, I love this one. Like I said earlier, this is what you have to start the show with. And these two, I love everything for Jericho for about the next 20 years. Then all hell goes to hell. But that's just my own personal opinion. But here, I like it. And like you said, this is the only time we really get this version of Chris Jericho. And this match just hit every box that I could probably check almost. And I loved it. Like you said, the finish was a little wonky. But other than that, I'll probably, did I give this maybe the best thing tonight, honestly. And I gave it an A-. So it was a good match. All right. Anybody have any other final thoughts on this one? We'll move on.
Wait, on the tag match or
no, John, are you already we're still on Eddie and Jericho.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. My bad.
John, just because you're wearing Ric Flair's robe doesn't mean you have to be senile, okay?
No, I'm reading that too. I'm reading the note right now, and I thought we were getting on to the next one.
Sorry guys, his first time on screen for a podcast, he's nervous.
Yeah.
No problem. It's okay. You should go back and listen to our first
main evented on Friday, but I'm nervous right now. Let's go.
Yeah, you should go back and listen to our first episode. We just rambled for like 3 hours, and I had to like.
You should not listen to our first episode. Yeah, it's way too long and so many pauses.
Yeah, the only thing that keeps us from rambling is that the show ends.
All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll move on to our next match. It's the Harlem Heat with Jacqueline versus the Steiner Brothers with Mr. Ted DiBiase. And talk about you're just 4 big ass dudes beating the absolute shit out of each other, because that's what we're going to get. That's what you thought you were getting, and I'm all for it. This is my kind of match.
Yeah, the first thing I want to point out, like before we even get into the match, is that this is like the weirdest looking version of Scott Steiner. He's like in that in between transition period from like long hair Scott Steiner to platinum blonde big bad booty daddy Steiner, and he looks so weird to me. He also is looking a little bloated, but he looks, it's such a weird look. Also, not a huge fan of the Steiners, like a weird, I'm wearing one black boot and one white boot thing. It's they just bought 2 pairs of boots and split them up. It's weird. It's a weird touch that I don't think they needed.
Yeah, well, we're just a few months away where they were wearing like 1989 neon spandex still. So
yeah. But I just had to point out, because this is such a weird in-between period for Scott that like I almost forgot happened.
Yeah, he's not in his full math teacher phase yet.
Yeah, exactly. Rick is a beast though. Rick is looking like a beast out there.
Oh yeah. Out of the two, I think I like Rick Steiner always better than Scott. That's just me. I mean, Scott's batshit crazy and entertaining, but I always like Rick in the ring better.
I liked Rick as a kid. As now being in a tag team, I notice Rick because he's the hot tag like I am. But he's clear, like Scott is clearly the workhorse, and like I notice it more as an adult than I ever did as a kid. There's like whole times where like Rick doesn't even like come in for hot tags. Like Scott is just like does the whole thing, and then Rick just like distracts somebody and the match is over.
Save those bumps, kid.
But yeah, I mean, my first note on here is that Stevie Ray does weird punches. I don't know, like I can't explain why they're weird. They're just super weird.
First of all, you want to talk about a guy who got so far with so little. Stevie Ray. Everyone knows who Stevie Ray is if you're like a 90s wrestling fan. He's in genuinely great matches. Boy, is he the fourth wheel in this third wheel that should work because there's 4 wheels, but no.
Yeah.
Boy, does Booker T save his ass a lot.
Yeah. This is another match that it was kind of just like the first half of it was kind of just like basic brute strength brawl, like on the fly punch kick stuff. And then there hits a point where they up and over Scott to the outside and it looks like he dies. He like flips over the ropes and like hits his head on the apron and dies, and from there on they just kill each other.
To me it looks very Lesnar like, very like I'm just gonna brainbuster myself, I guess.
Yeah, they do like the end of this match when you have Harlem Heat hitting that like the drop kick doomsday device, and then you have that like kick like German the side back like whatever that they're like killing each other. Every one of their double teams at the end of this match are insane. It reminded me how much when Scott cared, because Scott Steiner stops caring very soon after this, and it's very obvious that he just turns into Lesnar where he's just I'm all suplexes now. But when he still cares here, before he becomes the big bad booty daddy, he is insane. He is so big to be taking these bumps. Like the lariat German they hit at the end of the match is crazy. It's a crazy match. It's very Japanese and very much 4 guys just trying to knock each other out.
Yeah, you can tell the Steiners are still doing Japanese tours at this point, and you're gonna have to work their style, brother. Luckily, Booker T and Stevie Ray kind of works well with the Japanese style. I'm not saying he's great at it, but he adapts way better to Japanese style than like if he was in the WWF machine at the time or something. So it is a good mesh. I can absolutely see why they wanted to do this match. Really weird to see Ted DiBiase there, by the way. I never felt like it made sense that he was with the Steiners at any point. I don't even remember how he joins them, to be honest. I know he turns on the NWO and he's with them. It's really weird for the millionaire to be seconding these college athletes.
He literally just shows up. Just one Nitro, they show up and they're like, "We have a new manager. You'll see him next week." The next week, it's Ted DiBiase. Wasn't he with the NWO? Yeah, well, I left him. It was really awkward. It was really awkward. It also doesn't
make sense because Ted's supposed to be the storyline backer for the NWO. He's paying for the commercials. He's the guy getting them in the ring. He's making them new belts, the T-shirts. He's funding the T-shirts that they sell in the parking lot, which is how they sold NWO T-shirts at the time, which was awesome. And then they're just like, forget it. You get the idea. The gimmick's there. And he's just gone.
Well, it's because Bischoff decided, hey, look, that's hot. I need involved.
Yeah.
We don't need two mouthpieces. Bye, Ted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Miss Jacqueline, awesome. Always
Yeah.
been awesome. When she was Miss
yeah.
Texas in the early 90s, she's awesome. She's always awesome. So I'm always happy to see her on any show.
She got Disco fired. So,
Yeah, at this point, Disco Inferno is fired because he refused to lose to her. And within the next month, he'll be rehired, given the TV title, and will still lose to her on pay-per-view while TV champion.
He must have been rehired real soon because he'll be on Nitro tomorrow night.
Yep. No, this is like he might have been already rehired at this point, but he's not on the paper. He was definitely fired like right around this time.
Okay.
Because he comes back to lose to Jacqueline at Halloween Havoc.
Good.
I'd have fired him after that.
Right?
I'd have fired him out of a rocket.
I would have fired a rocket at him.
Hashtag disco dipshit.
I disagree with that, but I'm gonna give you my cliff note here for this. I put Scott went for a hammerlock. He was actually like doing some pretty cool chaining in it, basically, and he spun into a
trainer. Everybody, look at that hammerlock!
Spun into an upper wrist lock from the hammerlock. I thought that was pretty cool. And I said, "Wow, that finish is my hero," and I gave it a B plus.
John for those like John has his own wrestling school that he's a trainer at, so he's gonna of course notice the technical stuff of Scott doing like cool technical transitions instead of the Japanese stuff, which is the stuff I watch. But yeah, no, that was a good tag match. I have on here that I gave it a B. It was a solid B. Nothing spectacular, like nothing crazy, but like as it went on, they did some really cool double teams, and it was a good match.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I gave it a B minus. I feel like they went as hard as they could, but like you said, during the transition, plus the Steiners have been around so long, I feel like they're kind of worn out in WCW, which is why the transition to heel turn happens pretty quickly. So they kind of ran their course already, I feel like. So I go with like a B minus. It's still good match, especially for a WCW tag, which kind of doesn't exist in like 6 months anymore.
And for a match with Stevie Ray in it.
Yeah. So there you go.
See, I'm not as hard on Stevie Ray, I guess, as you guys are, but what you guys obviously
you haven't watched his Thunder appearances.
Yeah, you haven't watched main event Stevie Ray.
He's the main eventer like every other week, so we see a lot of Stevie Ray.
Yeah, there are 2 stars of Thunder for a while, for like a solid year, and it's Stevie Ray and Conan. So
yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to think maybe I was going to say when Thunder begins, we haven't made it that far yet. Maybe we're going to watch it, but maybe not.
If you'd like to join us and watch an episode to remind yourself why you don't want to watch it, feel free.
Hey, if you want to go back a year and watch like Raw in like July 96 and remind me why I didn't slip my wrist when we started this damn thing.
Oh, I'm good.
Dude, I would do that.
John,
I'd go into that. I'm the one that got us on this whole journey.
This is John's fault.
You're the masochist over here.
Yep.
Oh, good Lord. Oh no. I was on
go back and watch all that Shawn Michaels Vader build up that goes nowhere. Have fun.
Man.
I've got a whole episode where there's like a 45-minute rant about me and that whole because I love me some Vader, and that just pisses me the fuck off.
Oh, you mean star of Boy Meets World Vader?
Yes. Well, yeah. But talk about masochist. Somebody asked me to come on their show and watch and review 1990 Survivor Series.
Ooh.
I would rather than do that again, I would rather wipe my ass with a cheese grater. It'd be less painful. But this one though, I like this. I love both these teams. I like, just like I said, I was like 4 big guys in the ring beating the absolute shit out of each other. That's something I've always enjoyed. So I gave this a B plus. Arnold?
Yeah. Steiners versus Harlem Heat. you're not going to get too much more than 4 dudes beating the crap out of each other. And of course, when Jacqueline's in your corner, you're going to have some backup. So there you got that right there. Just it seemed like the finish, I think they kind of flubbed it a little bit. At least it looked like it to me, because it seemed like that clothesline and the German suplex was kind of like, okay, this is kind of on the fly. We just got to figure something out.
It very well could.
Steiner's on the fly. What?
Yeah, I know. I'm shocked, right? It was one of those. It's kind of like WCW, but I'm just glad they didn't say, all right, let's try that again, like we've seen so many times in early '90s WWF. Cough. But outside of that, I mean, this wasn't too bad of a match. Like I said, like with Drew, same thing. I'm a fan of the Steiners. I'm a fan of Harlem Heat. They put on a great show. I gave it a B.
Yeah, I could see Rick saying, all right, get on my shoulders. He's going to hit you with a Cadillac. Oh, what wham?
Yeah.
One of those type of things. Wouldn't surprise anybody at all. Speaking of surprises, though, we have our next match. And, I hate to do this, but it's Alex Wright versus Ultimo Dragon.
Oh, we have a lot to say. We have a lot to say, don't we?
Ultimo Dragon.
I have a feeling this might go a while.
No, I have nothing to. We were actually, we were just on a show with Ultimo Dragon this weekend. For anyone who's watching this, if you've seen the clip of Alberto Del Rio ranting about not getting paid, that would be the show. Ultimo Dragon, I mean, that's how I feel after the show. It's a shame. We were actually going to ask him to get a photo with the two of us and then post it for Thunder Buddies, since we watched all the time. And then I was like, never mind. But this match, like, first, I just need to say, I love Alex Wright. I think Alex Wright is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the entire, Monday Night Wars era. Especially considering he's 22 here. He is so good. He reminds me of a prototype version of Cesaro, in that he is a big guy who can move and who can post for these smaller luchadors and can do more lucha stuff, but also hang with the more heavyweight guys because of his size. And also can do the technical stuff and also can do a little bit of high flying. He's very much like that prototype all-arounder that we get later on in wrestling that we don't have as much here in this era.
I said on this podcast, every time we talk about him, and I've said Alex Wright had everything, but he didn't have it.
Yeah, well, he a big problem he had too was he couldn't talk. And they never gave him a mouthpiece, which is the same problem Claudio had, or Cesaro had, for a long time. Yep. They're both European. They're both I would love if Alex Wright came back and did another tour now. He's still only in his mid 40s. I guarantee you, if he did a tour on the Indies or something, it would be awesome. He still trains guys, I'm pretty sure. The dude was way ahead of his time, and very good, and never really got enough credit. After that, I don't have many specific points for this match. Like spots, like the other matches I pointed out, specific moves and stuff. I think my biggest thing with this match is that there was too many false comebacks for Ultimo Dragon. It felt very at least 4 or 5 times Ultimo Dragon was doing a comeback and then back to the heat, and then it was just too much. It went too long. They did 5 or 6 counters from the top rope, where a guy jumped off the top rope and a guy countered something with the foot up in the air, which we call the flying nothing, when a guy just jumps off the top and eats a boot. What were you going for? Nothing. You were going for nothing. It never got out of second gear to me. This match never made it from second gear into third gear like the first match did. The first match had that moment where it kicked in and really went hard, and this dragged a little bit because I don't know if they ever got there. The story they were trying to tell was that Alex Wright had scouted Ultimo Dragon and was countering everything he was throwing at him, but because of that, it never kicked into that final stretch for me and really it held it back, unfortunately, because I love both of these guys as wrestlers.
So, yeah. So this being for the television title, a little bit of history for you. At the time, I believe they were doing 15-minute time limit.
Mm-hmm.
And these two had already wrestled on Saturday night a few weeks earlier. They went to a 15-minute draw. So the expectation on this show being a no time limit match is to go over 15. And in a modern day match, I think this is a victim of its time, because in a modern day match, that wouldn't have been a problem. They clearly know what they're doing. They could plan a 15-minute match. That's no problem. But in this atmosphere, 97, they're kind of working on that's not even kind of. They're definitely working on the fly. They definitely have a finish and then maybe an opening, and that's it. So it's a lot of roll-ups. It's a lot of pins. It's a lot of stuff that, as a wrestler, knowing wrestling structure, it should all be the end of the match. And that's awesome if it's 2006 Ring of Honor. It's not. It's 97 WCW. So it just comes off as very truncated, very bloated, and exactly what Wade said. They never get out of second gear, because to do that, they would have to do something phenomenal that they probably can't do on the fly with their movesets. Ultimo Dragon's not going to do an side out of nowhere and like for the finish or whatever. Like, that's not going to happen. And Alex Wright doesn't have anything super exciting in his moveset because he's the heel. So it just leads to a very flat, almost 19 minutes of wrestling, sure. But the story is that it's long, and that's not exciting.
Yeah, it feels like it's like a run-on sentence of a match.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, one of my
John, what the hammerlock or arm ringer did you like?
From Alex Wright especially, because he does all the cool shit.
Well, if you must know, I put that there's too many flying nothings,
Which there was.
and I've found watching bread go stale more entertaining. The finish was cool, but not worth the bakery. I gave it a C+.
I also gave it a C+, by the way.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right there, probably like a C.
All right, Arnold. I went first last time.
I would say, yeah. I was well with this one. It's kind of funny you brought up that it didn't get out of second gear, Wade. That's my big thing, and Drew can tell you that now. And I mean, I'm sure my listeners know it. Storytelling is a huge part of a wrestling match. I'm sure you guys know that as wrestlers.
They've probably been told once or twice.
Right. So this one, it kind of felt like once upon a time there was Alex Wright, your TV champion, and Ultimate Dragon. The end. And it was kind of like there was really no substance in the middle of it, because there's certain matches.
By definition, it was an exhibition of holds, and that's the wrestling it gets.
Yeah,
those where like we've seen long matches, and there are some where it's like you're on the edge of your seat. Is it going to end? Oh my God, a near fall. Oh my God, is he going to get up from that? This one was kind of like, okay, like you rolled him up again. All right, cool. Wow, a suplex. 1-2, nothing, and it's kind of like okay, and it just seemed to kind of drag, and I remember there was a point in this match where I looked at my phone, and for me, that's when I'm like, yep, I'm out of the match.
Like, just to go like a little inside baseball for a second, like there's a very simple structure to a match of like you have the shine, you have the heat, you have the double down, like you have your false hopes in there for the good guy, and then at the end you go towards your finish. You have your false finishes and your finish. This was like 15 minutes of heat, but the heat wasn't even a heat because it was like Ultimo Dragon just like fighting back constantly. Like there was no traditional structure. It was just like a bunch of non sequiturs. Like there was no cohesion to it. It never was like I said, they were clearly going for the idea of Alex Wright having Dragon scouted because he had worked him already. But like that didn't build as the match went on. It just was like very flat. Like it never got like bigger and bigger and bigger. And then here's the big thing at the end, or he's countered everything and now he's got to go for the roll up. That's a common finish where like there's nothing left to counter. He gets the desperation roll up, whatever. There was no story. There was nothing.
Yeah, the story can't be that the match is really, really long. You got to have more than just that.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, I didn't care for this one as much as normally as I do for either of these guys. I actually also gave it a C plus, and especially tomorrow night. Well, yeah, the very next night, Ultimo has an absolute banger with Eddie Guerrero, which is just amazing. So if you want to go see something listen to what I talk about it tomorrow. I've already seen it, so just find out what I give that. But yeah, especially seeing that and then coming back to this, I'm like, okay, this one sucked pretty much because
it's tough too because like it doesn't suck. Like there's no moments where I'm like, man, they messed that spot up or like that was sloppy. Like everything was clean. It just was there. Like there wasn't anything to it. Like Rad said, it was an exhibition of holds. It was like it felt like guys working and training and like doing their stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to say maybe saying it sucks a little harsh. It was
mediocre,
a letdown.
Yeah,
a letdown from what I was expecting. That's probably a better way to put it.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of letdowns, we get an attack in the back. The NWO has taken out Kurt Hennig. Oh, great!
Oh no,
but it's off camera and nobody saw it.
Oh,
weird.
No.
Beard stroke. Weird. More on that later. All right. And then we get to the match, which maybe this one I was kind of really looking forward to. And I'm kind of interested to see how you guys think about this one. We get Double J, Jeff Jarrett with Deborah versus the Iceman of 1,000 Holds, Dean Malenko. And I just want to know kind of first what you guys think of Dean Malenko.
Oh, Dean Malenko's like one of the best technicians. I love his work. I think he's fantastic. I love this era where they're still kind of not pushing him into being a cruiserweight and letting him hang with the heavyweights because he's so good and he's so intense and he feels like a prototype version of what Benoit becomes in all the good ways. Malenko's great.
I would even say Taz-like in some ways, just without the New York background.
The intensity.
Yeah.
The stare.
He could have been pushed to the moon as like, maybe not cruiserweight Goldberg, but that kind of idea where he's just a smaller Goldberg.
Yeah.
They could have easily done
the best version of Lance Storm.
Fair.
That's a good description.
Yeah, that's very. I've never thought of it, but yeah, I've always said if he was 2 inches taller, he'd be a like first ballot Hall of Famer, 14-time world champion.
I mean, there's a reason he's still an agent and putting matches together in the back.
I'd still like to see him, see if he could go.
He probably could.
He's stretched a lot of people, I bet. But yeah, our award show, we have one at the end of the year and we always just do our own little award show. 1996, he was my wrestler of the year for both companies overall. I love Dean Malenko. Everything he's ever. I'm trying to think of anything bad he's ever done. Has he ever had a bad match?
I mean, famously, he left the ring when he shouldn't have. But, you know. But other than that, no.
He left the ring really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, that was perfect. He did that great.
And then he left the company, so like even better.
Well,
that was his last match in the company.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna go out in style.
We'll get there.
So, it's funny you mention that though, because Dean Malenko was also the PWI Wrestler of the Year in 1996.
Was he? Oh, see, I intentionally didn't look anything up those until after we picked ours. Then we went back and I think we looked at Uncle Dave's bullshit and see what all he put. So,
but yeah, I'm gonna just spoil it and say this was my match of the night. I really enjoyed it. I'm not a huge Jarrett fan. As a worker, I don't think he's that great. Well, I know he's your favorite, Rad, but
you guys shut the hell up right now. Okay, that's not true.
Do I need to mute somebody while the other one talks?
I love this era of like Jarrett's gear alone makes you want to punch him in the face. He looks like such a dork. the heel, it is a perfect heel move to come out with Deborah for all the accolades and then send her to the back immediately. It's such a good jerk move that like is still classic, and not really seen anymore. Probably last time you saw it would have been like Mike Knox and Kelly, but like it's not a thing that's done anymore for probably good reasons. But in the time, it was great. But I loved the story of this match because this is the whole idea of like the Horsemen hate Jarrett, but Flair likes Jarrett and kind of wants to bring him into the Horsemen, but the rest of the guys hate him, and they're kind of like testing him out and like trying to beat his ass so he doesn't join. Like, and
now they just added Kurt Hennig too.
Yeah. And the story of this is so good. Like Malenko is constantly a step of like, here's a good execution of what Alex Wright was trying to do with Ultimo Dragon, where Malenko is constantly a step ahead of Jarrett. Like every time Jarrett goes for something, he gets it, and then maybe he goes for it again, and Malenko has it reversed. And he keeps being that step ahead, and then Jarrett has to take a shortcut to get ahead of Malenko. And then Malenko is ahead of him again, and then Jarrett takes another shortcut. Like Jarrett's trying to prove to him he can out wrestle him, but he can't. And then he has to take another shortcut to get an advantage. And then Malenko gets back on top. Jarrett worked his ass off in this match. Jarrett was bumping around like a crazy person. Like for him, he was absolutely working his ass off. The storytelling was great with the whole idea of that feud in mind. Jarrett even did the Arn Anderson spot where he faked the punch and made Malenko duck down, and then he hit the neck breaker, which Arn used to do with the DDT, which I thought was such a nice subtle storytelling thing.
And a nice little homage since Arn just retired like 3 weeks
exactly
ago.
And he's trying to join the Horsemen, so of course he would do like an Arn spot. I thought that was great. And I really liked the finish because the finish was like Jarrett didn't cheat, but he still like took a shortcut to set up the finish, and then his finish was Flair's finish. Like the storytelling of incorporating all the Horsemen stuff was so cool. And like that's what made the match for me. There was all that subtle storytelling of show don't tell, and it was great. I gave the match an A. It's my highest rated match of the night.
Awesome.
Yeah. I would also say it's pretty much equal to Eddie and Jericho, whether you prefer storytelling or athleticism. You could pick and choose either one. Fun fact that they mentioned on commentary, the winner of this match got a U.S. title shot next month at Halloween Havoc. The U.S. title match at Halloween Havoc is Kurt Hennig versus Ric Flair. So I have no idea what that's about. I don't know if Jeff Jarrett gives the title shot to Ric Flair. I don't know. But the storytelling here is fantastic. It sucks that Jarrett and the Horseman angle is almost over because Jarrett's about to leave. They don't really resolve it per se. And that really sucks because like you can tell they're putting actual effort into the storytelling in what is essentially kind of I don't want to say a random match, but it's just a number one contenders match that happens to have a future Horseman in it. But the storytelling is there. And this is 95 to 97 Jarrett is really good. And I think people forget that because once he goes back to the WWF, it's all character work, it's guitars, it's Deborah. And he's even doing the Deborah stuff now 2 years before, just in smaller doses. And adding that with his ring work, he's doing great stuff. And this is like the tail end of that. So this is a great match. I would say it's right up there. It's either the match of the night or it's tied with Eddie and Jericho, depending on how you feel about storytelling. It's great. A rare, I guess if you want to say a rare Jeff Jarrett pay-per-view match to recommend to people.
I mean, you don't like the one where he's using household items on?
Well, Rad likes all of them, but
you shut your mouth over there.
But yeah, like it was just it's the end of great like singles Jarrett. The last run that I enjoy of his is like him and Owen, but other than that, it's like this is the end of his good like singles mid-card stuff. And it's like I said, they weren't obvious with all the storytelling in this match, but like it was so good if you picked up on it and were like paying attention to the feud and stuff.
Yep.
And I'll appreciate any storyline that can go like almost a full year and still be interesting at the end. So yeah. I'm always up for that.
John, what did you have in your notes on this one?
I mean, you guys pretty much
I
covered
know I
it
covered
all.
a lot of it.
Chain Fest, good foundational match, B plus,
Yeah.
same as Eddie and Jericho.
Yeah, I'll go B plus.
Yeah, I also went with a B plus because as Rad said, I actually like the Eddie and Jericho just about much more than this, and that's not knocking this in the slightest. This was a very entertaining, especially when it's just middle of the card, and especially with, well, we'll get to that later. The shit fest we'll get, but anywho, yeah, I like this. I love Dean Malenko. He's probably one of my, if I'd probably put him in my top 10 of favorites to watch of all time. That's how big of a mark I am for Dean. Jarrett, Wade, I got to ask you a question. You mentioned his gear and how stupid it is. If you had to pick one to wear to your next show, which would you wear? The frilly, whatever the hell you want to call it, singlet with the neck thing, or the big glowing blinking glasses?
Oh, blinking glasses,
Glasses,
absolutely.
100%.
Come on, that's not even
The
a question.
the tougher choice for me would be if you were going to ask me if I was going to wear this Jarrett gear with the stupid straps, or the stupid Harlem Heat gear with the giant circle in the friggin' middle of the chest. Those are like the two worst gears of this era that I rip on constantly.
I've always just assumed they wore those big giant metal rings in the front because they hated taking chops to the chest.
I mean, it makes sense.
My
That being said, I would
favorite
rather
is
wear
the,
this Jarrett gear than the rings.
Oh yeah,
This gear, it's such good heel gear because it looks so dorky that like you can't root for a guy who looks like this.
True.
You can't. You just can't. And
No.
it's smart in that fashion because the second he comes out, you're like, screw this guy. Like,
Oh,
I just
that's why Disco wears the nose.
oh.
yes, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Just give me the giant double J jacket that he had at WrestleMania, and I'll wear that to my wedding. I don't care.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. All right. What'd you give this one, Arnold?
This one got a B. It was one of those like well, everybody said basically. I mean, it was just missing that little bit of a spark from Eddie versus Jericho. But at the same time, I mean, Double J, not a bad worker, really good work in this match. Malenko is Malenko. I mean, let's be real here. It was, I mean, in terms of psychology, the match itself seemed consistent. It's like, you know, it wasn't like, oh, we're going to start like this, and then suddenly everything just kind of flipped the script. It was kind of interesting seeing Malenko kind of start to get a little unhinged after a while and just try to knock Jeff Jarrett around as much as he could.
Well, I took that as like he was getting fed up with every time he had like an answer. Jarrett was like taking a shortcut, so it was like pissing him off. That was how I interpreted that. Is like he was just getting like pissed off at Jarrett because Jarrett was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm ahead of you, and now you're taking cheap shots. Like, come on, you know I'm better than you. Stop."
I was like, yeah. And for me, I mean, that made it entertaining because, I mean, I think we've all been there with one thing or another where it's like, all right, we got the upper hand on this person. Then they start to get the upper hand back from, you know, cutting corners. And it's like, okay, now I'm kind of mad.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, shoot, I played football. It's like, I can do so much before they throw the flags. So I'm going to do what I can without getting a penalty.
Exactly.
And,
Bite him in the nuts.
speaking of that, even, I didn't do any of that. But yeah, it was like, until Radley mentioned it a little bit ago. Yeah, I was like, I didn't realize that. Yeah, Jeff was basically on his way back to New York, if that makes sense. And yeah, and if I remember correctly, won't make an appearance back in Georgia until '99. That would be fun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and he'll be
Nate Russo takes
$30,000
over.
richer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, you guys just want to cut this off and go play some Mortal Kombat?
Sure.
Well, good.
Yeah.
You'll-
Like based on my listing here, we're not like we're not missing much else on this show. So
yeah.
Show's over.
Well, if you guys like Mortal Kombat, you'll love this next match. And of course, if it's Mortal Kombat, it's got to be Wrath and Mortis with James Vanderbeek versus the Faces of Fear.
It's gonna be Wrath. That's Wrath. That's gonna be Wrath.
yeah, John Spore's favorite wrestler, Wrath. not like Rad's favorite wrestler, Jeff Jarrett. This is actually real.
Shut your mouth over there.
But yeah, I have very few notes for this. It's like, one is that the Faces of Fear should have been champs at some point, 100%. Like,
Thank you.
They were so entertaining. I love Ming and Barbarian. They were awesome. They always went out and tried to put on bangers. They always
tried.
Well, sometimes they had to drag people kicking and screaming through them. Canyon was a workhorse in this match. He did the whole match. It's so weird. I think Wrath gets good in his singles where he starts tapping into his athleticism more. In this match, he's like just a hoss and like just a powerhouse, and it's not as good yet. Ming, obviously incredible always. Ming just doesn't give a single shit about anything. It was a brawl. It was kind of just there. The finish I thought was awesome. With him like holding him, and like Wrath came in and like reversed it into the finish. It was really cool and way cleaner than it looked like it was going to be. I gave this like a C. Probably like a B- actually. There was a story. It was okay. It just wasn't as disjointed as Alex Wright's match. It just wasn't as good of a hoss fight brawl as the other tag match. So I put it in the middle at B-.
Right.
I will say this is probably the best Wrath and Mortis match we've ever seen. Which, I mean, that's not high praise, but
I was gonna say, the real hero of this match, in my opinion, is Mortis. Mortis, if we're grading wrestlers tonight, Mortis is an A+. That dude bumped his ass off. That dude, obviously, Chris Kanyon, he gives 1,000,000% every time. Also ridiculously underrated, just like Alex Wright. Just like Saturn as well. I'll throw that in there. Even though Saturn did get recognition, still underrated for the recognition he got.
Yes.
Yeah, just to put over, just because he mentioned it, Saturn, one of the best all-around wrestlers of this era, and it's not like top 5 all-around wrestlers in this era, can do everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Saturn could have been a main eventer in 98, 99 easily. And that's the hottest era of wrestling, and I still believe that. As far as managers go, really interesting to see James Vandenberg out there, because
Who?
I always think of his James Vandenberg.
You mean James Vanderbeek?
Yes.
Vanderbeek, whatever.
Yeah, from straight off Dawson's Creek.
I was reading it as it says on Wiki, and it says Vandenberg.
It's
Anyway.
a joke, Brad, it's a joke about an actor.
Oh, I don't watch TV. Anyway.
Okay. Sorry to go ahead. Sorry.
I was not Captain America. I do not know that reference. But hey, Ming's there. How about that Ming, huh? But I was gonna say, I'd highly recommend, if you want to see other Father James Mitchell things, to look up Daryl Van Horn promos on Smoky Mountain Wrestling. It's like 20 minutes long on YouTube. And
Thank you.
Wild.
Thank you.
Wild what that guy got away with back then. On television.
Even James Mitchell was superior.
Yeah. So yeah, it was. And I always love the way Ming sells. He'll take your bump, but then he's just gonna get back up like as if nothing mattered. But it did matter. He did bump at least. So there's that. And I always love the Face of Fear, but I do feel like this match was lacking, and I think mostly it's because of Wrath, to be honest. Sorry, John. Sorry to break your heart. Wrath just wasn't a very good tag team wrestler. I think we can say that. I think that's pretty well
until Chronic.
No. So Wrath was not a good tag team wrestler.
Wade's just poking the bear all night long, and I'm just waiting for somebody to growl.
Oh boy. You should see us plan a match. Anyway, it's it's a very mediocre match. I was not impressed. The worst of the 2 tag matches. But hey, Mortis, A+ work, man. That guy is working his ass off.
Yep.
John, what do you have to say about your boy?
I'm gonna say Wrath in his full gear ruled. Wrath in his wrestling attire on the apron, no good. The Faces of Fears gear was awesome as well.
Oh, it was actually.
I'm gonna give the match. I gave the match an A plus 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 plus, and I said, "Eat your heart out, Dave Meltzer."
Not a biased review at all.
No.
I would no, I don't think that's purely objective. For me, I love Ming and Barbarian. They're like you said, how they never. Well, I know why. How they never. It's called Hall and Nash, but got the belts at this point. But yeah, but I could watch Ming go all day. You were talking about, at least he would take the bump. Tomorrow night on Raw, I about shit my pants watching the Road Warriors get really visibly pissed off in the ring when Kurgan wouldn't sell for him at all. Because it was just a scrum at the end of it, and they hit him, and he just stands there, and you could just watch Hawk's face like, I'm going to beat your ass the second you get back through that curtain. He was pissed, and it was quite hilarious.
But believe it or not, you can no sell and still work your match. That is possible. I don't know why people don't understand that.
Well, Ming made a career out of it.
Yeah.
Well, this one, it was the worst of the two tag matches, which kind of I saw coming with Wrath and Mortis because I'm just not a big fan. Like Canyon, I would have loved just seen him right now in '97 as Chris Canyon and not stuck behind that god awful gimmick. Sorry.
Even just as like a cruiserweight Mortis would probably be phenomenal at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I made really cool entrance music. I love the entrance, but then it's just downhill from there. This one just got a B for me. It wasn't anything to write home about, and that's just probably me marking out over Ming and Barbarian.
Excuse me. I gave this one a B minus. Like, of the two tag team matches, this one was kind of in comparison. But I mean, I'm a Faces of Fear mark, hands down. Like, in my opinion, Ming and Barbarian could do no wrong, especially in the late 90s. And part of that was because I was afraid they would come to my house and like eat me. And plus, I mean, I go on about those guys all the time. I mean, like, there aren't too many guys where it's just like, you can just watch him on TV and be like, you know what? I bet he is like a bona fide badass. These two are those guys. And I mean, obviously, I'm not going to go out if like there's a house show in town. I'm not going to go out to a bar and pick a fight with a wrestler. I'm not an idiot. But I feel like those are the guys. That's different. That I'm going to take a cheap shot at that point. I will risk getting kicked out of the bar for that. But
I'd burn down the bar and lock the doors.
Everybody else is
collateral damage.
It's like, that wouldn't be drunk me saying I could beat that wrestler up. That would just be on principle. It's like, this is for everything you've ever said on Twitter. But yeah, Ming and Barbarian are those guys where it's like, oh shit, I made eye contact, I need to leave, kind of thing. And I'm kind of rambling here. My apologies. I do that a lot. But
Ming isn't here. You don't have to be nervous.
Right. I know, right? I'm check the door and make sure he's gonna kick my door in and scream Samoan things at me while I cry.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, Ming, every story I've ever heard about him is insane. Like, there's a story about him like being maced and just like sucking it in and then like fighting 8 cops.
If I they always say if I met the guy in a dark alley, if I passed Ming in the aisle at Walmart, I would drop my wallet and run the other direction.
I feel like there's somebody's told a story about him, like they wouldn't shoot Ming because they'd be worried they didn't kill him, and he would just
sounds about right.
Like, he's insane. One of the most legit badasses in the history of wrestling.
Yep,
absolutely. And that's how I felt with this match, because I mean, it's one of those ones, you got a bunch of big dudes in the ring, And I don't know what it is. I think WCW just put that into their formula where it's just like, okay, we're going to get these team together with a bunch of big sweaty men, and it'll be a regular tag team match for maybe the first 10 minutes. And then like the last 30 seconds of the match is all hell breaks loose. I feel like that's been their formula since the invention of professional wrestling, and WCW was a thing. Because
don't fix it.
I guess so, because I have yet to see a tag team match in WCW where it's like, okay, we're going to tag, and it's a hot tag, and the guy comes and saves the day. 1, 2, 3, yay, we win. It's always okay. Well, here's a hot tag, but I'm going to come in anyway and just choke the ref, maybe choke a manager, a Tongan death grip here or there. Harlem, he comes out of nowhere. Like, it's just pandemonium every time. And I do appreciate that, but it was kind of nice seeing Wrath and Mortis go over here, because it seems like any other time they're in the ring, unless they're going up against Job Squad, they end up on the losing end half the time. And I mean, let's be real. In terms of the potential shown here, who showed more potential than Mortis? Nobody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, where do they get their tag team title match tomorrow night after losing this one? Because reasons.
WCW, baby.
It was already signed, guys. It was already signed.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, Arnold, or anybody, do you know who comes out who we see next after this?
Is it the match, or is there another segment in here that I forgot about?
There's a segment in between. Do you know who it is? Do you know who it is, Arnold?
I know who it is.
It's me, Gene.
Ah, yes.
Sorry, I love me some Gene Okerlund.
I believe it's pronounced mean. Woo! By God, Gene.
Yes.
I went with the more colloquial Christian version. But yeah, he's in the back, 4 horsemen. So no Kurt Hennig, he's hurt. Ric Flair gives one of his insane fired up promos saying he's going to go the good fight, go anyway. Like, who didn't see this coming? Kind of like a replay of last year when is Sting going to be there? Sting not going to be there. Screw it, we're going anyway. So kind of a rehash, but just a new coat of paint. But like Radley said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But this one's still kind of broke, but whatever. Speaking of broken and I don't want to fix it, can we all just quickly go over the next match and just say it was shit and move on?
So here, I don't think it was shit. I just think it was a Nitro squash match put on a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's mainly what I'm going for. Like, in the ring, it was what it was, but why was this here?
Yeah, it didn't need to be on the pay-per-view. It felt like padding. The Giant took way too much of an ass kicking from Scott Norton for my liking. I didn't appreciate that. There was a crazy bump to the floor that they took for no reason in a 5-minute match. And then like the Giant was doing a bunch of cruiserweight shit, which was nuts. Yeah, I gave it like a D+. It was a good squash. It just was a squash. Like, I can't give a squash match much higher than like a 1-star rating. So we'll go D+. Like, it didn't need to be on the pay-per-view. It just didn't. Nothing was wrong with it. It just wasn't a pay-per-view match.
I mean, I can give a squash, a little higher grade because if it means something. This meant nothing. This was just here. This was like, we need something to carve out 3 minutes. Just have the Nitro Girls dance.
It felt like a prototype Goldberg match where the guy who was going to lose got all his offense in, and then Goldberg just killed him at the end. Like, that's what it was. Scott Norton got all his offense in, and then the Giant killed him.
I'll read my note verbatim on this one. Oh, sorry. My notes, all I wrote for this was, if this goes 45 seconds, it's too long, D. That's my notes for this one.
You're absolutely right. This is a match that I feel like they're trying to service a lot of masters. And when you have to do that, it can get very messy very quickly. So it's let's take the 2 biggest guys in the company, I believe, and throw them together on pay-per-view. Great. Okay. But also we want to make it kind of a squash match for the Giant to win. Okay. Also, we got to put Norton over because he's really big in Japan and he's touring and we can't just bury him. Okay, but it can't be too long either. So it's going to be like an extended squash match, but kind of promoting Norton in the squash. Okay. Oh, also Giant wants to do a bunch of crazy shit because it's pay-per-view. Okay. That just leads to a bunch of disaster.
Also, one thing I forgot to
way
point,
too much.
it felt like they were trying to fit in because they knew how the show was going to end, that they wanted one extra instance of WCW getting one up on the NWO.
Yes.
Before the final match.
Yep.
So they wanted to, because based on what happens in the next match, the WCW is dominating the NWO going into the main event. It felt like they were kind of just trying to give it where they had one more one-upsman before the end. So it looks like the WCW is going to get all their comeuppance with 3 straight matches, and then that's my only logic for why they would include this match.
Then I would just say give me Ray versus Conan for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not saying they should have. I'm just saying why they would have.
Yeah, I'm countering, armchair booking this thing. It's my job. Yeah, I hate this. I gave it a D. Did anybody give it anything higher?
D plus.
I did just for laughs, but I put B for Big Show.
That's fun. My only thing was with this one, I don't really need to go into detail. Y'all pretty much said it all. My question is, though, for me, it was kind of funny because it's like the icing on the cake at the end of the match was Larry Zbyszko getting like hype over this win. So, yeah, we beat the New World Order. And it's just kind of like, dude, everybody lost this match. They lost because it's kind of like they were literally like, you're really big and you're in different factions. Go out there and wrestle. The fans lost because it's like, well, we saw what we got. That was the product. And it's just like, well, let's just sprinkle. Hey, it's a dub for WCW. Sure thing, pal. That's why you got a D in this match. I mean, not Larry Zbyszko. He's the living legend. But the match overall got a D.
Yeah.
You didn't do the required
motion,
motion,
my
Arnold. I know they can't see us, but you have to do
it. Anytime you mention it.
All right. So yeah, I think everybody's in consensus except for John, who just wants to play spoiler.
He does that.
It's B for Big Show. I mean, I can dig it.
I would like to mention, I don't know if Giant versus Norton was advertised or not, but one match on the show that was advertised technically didn't happen. And that was Mongo McMichael versus Conan, which they end up becoming a part of the War Games match. So this might have replaced that. Would that have been better?
Oh,
no.
We don't know.
No.
We don't know. We don't know,
Might have
guys.
been more
Come on, we
entertaining.
don't know. We don't know.
Could have been more. It could have been a fun train wreck.
A Mongo single match? No.
As long as they gave Mongo the mic.
You don't want to watch Mongo give dangerous tombstone pile drivers and Conan get blown up 3 minutes into the match?
Who made it 3 minutes?
Usually it happens right as he stands back up after that rolling lariat.
I want to see Conan put Mongo in the Tequila Sunrise. Let's see it.
Yep.
I would have to have about 6 to sit through that.
X-Pac?
I appreciate that joke.
Bravo.
All right, so we'll move on to our next match before that goes any farther. And it's DDP and Luger versus Scott Hall and Macho Man. And
Okay. Another thing I just want to say about this match, I love all 4 of these guys, including Lex Luger, who is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. No one ever did more with less than Lex Luger. And I appreciate Lex Luger. And I literally just bought a Lex Luger action figure the other day. The first action figure I've bought in like 15 years. So, love Lex. My first note for this match is Lex Luger is goddamn unstoppable. Why did he tag out of this match? because he comes in and he does like a hot tag to open the match and then just tags out, and then DDP immediately gets heated on. Like, Luger starts the match with a hot tag and then tags DDP, and DDP immediately ruins the match for both of them. Then there's like a weird double heat, like the structure of this match is bonkers. It makes no sense. I appreciate though that it's the first match to use both of the rings. Lex Luger just gets like stomped into the abyss at one point and is just gone. And then Savage and Hall just take turns tossing DDP back and forth between the rings, and I love it. And then the finish takes infinitely too long, where it's Zbyszko gets up, or Heenan, who gets up and distracts? Somebody gets up and distracts on the apron.
Zbyszko.
Oh yeah, because it's leading to the Scott Hall Zbyszko thing.
Yep.
Zbyszko was up there for like a year and a half before Luger gets out of the abyss. And Hall has to just stand there forever. And then Luger gets the roll up and win. The storytelling of the match is fun, but the match isn't good. Like, I like what they were going for, but the execution was just okay. I ended up giving it a C-.
Yeah, I mean, who can forget that famous DDP Lex Luger tag team, guys?
Yeah.
I'm right there with Wade. I'm a huge Lex Luger mark. I wore white boots for the first 5 years of my career because I love Lex Luger so much. The best body guy to actually get somewhere of his generation. But maybe Eric Bischoff stopped having a tag team division because nobody knows how to do tag team matches, apparently. Or Lex Luger just thought it was going to be a squash and then forgot and then tagged out. He's like, oh, sorry. I saw Giant Norton and thought we were going 5 minutes. My bad. Yeah, this match is an absolute mess, which is a shame because when you got Randy Savage and Scott Hall selling for you, it should be amazing. That comeback should be on fire. And it's planned to be because it's a semi-main event and it's the last face win. The crowd doesn't know that, but it's the big face win of the night, and it falls flat. It's just there to me. It's just there. I liked it when I watched it, but now that it's been a little bit of time, it's just not that great. It's just not great. But passable for 97, I guess you want to think of it that way.
It was, yeah. To me, this was entertaining. Like, in the ring, it wasn't the greatest thing ever. Like you said, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But just sitting and watching it, it was entertaining. Like a big face win, like you said. And you were talking about Luger, how much you love Luger. I'm the same way with DDP. Always loved him since he got there.
Rad wrestled in jeans because of DDP for like 7 years.
I did.
White
Separate
boots
from
and
the
jeans.
boots, but yeah, separate from the boots. I did wrestle in jeans and a t-shirt for a while because I wanted to look like 97 DDP.
Did you have the famously extremely comically long cigar that he had in like late 96, early 97?
No,
you had the sunglasses though. You had sunglasses though.
Yeah,
you looked sleazy. You looked like a Vegas version of DDP for a little bit.
I had a spray tan at one point. Like,
sweet Jesus!
Don't worry. Also, I'd like to point out, I don't know if anybody noticed because it really isn't playing to the match at all. Maybe this was a no disqualification match, and boy, did they not use that to the fullest.
Oh wait, this just in. Oh yeah, another ref just got knocked out. So 25 years
fantastic.
later. Yeah. John, what did you have for this one?
I gave this a C for can't make this shit up.
I mean, that's fair.
There you go.
That's it, man.
I like like I said, this to me was entertaining. It wasn't great, but I enjoyed it, and I think maybe that's just me liking everybody in this match.
Well, it's like I said, fun storytelling, just like the match.
But
when you, it is so hard to just sit back and enjoy wrestling once you've become a wrestler, because you're just watching it going, why are they doing that? Like,
Especially when the match gets boring.
Yeah, or weird. Like, it literally looked like DDP was supposed to start this match, and then they were like, Luger, you're starting. And he's like, well, all I have planned is my hot tags, so we're going with that. It was like...
Well, the crowd was chanting DDP when he did it, so maybe he said, screw it, we'll just appease them.
Yeah.
I remember saying right after we watched it, I said, that would have been a great Nitro main event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah.
I can see that. But yeah, I gave this a B-. It was fun. It wasn't great. It wasn't blah. It was entertaining. That's about all I got for it.
Oh.
All right, Velvet Vocal Cords, you're the only one left.
Get him, Larry. Wait, what? What were we talking about?
Oh, sorry. Shut up. I have one more point. Why the hell is Zbyszko in there counting the damn finish? Is he a ref?
I'll tell you why. So the NWO doesn't have to take a real fall.
Yeah, that's the point I was trying to get to. That made no sense to me whatsoever, but it does. But yeah, I didn't. That's really the only part I didn't care for. Is just him getting, especially when he did it as a really fast count. And we hear nothing about that tomorrow. And that pisses me off.
Like this is the pay-per-view. You can have the pinfall. You do that kind of garbage on Nitro to build to the blow off. And Zbyszko interfered. It's clearly Zbyszko's fault that they lost. You don't have to do more than that. You don't have to make their win controversial because the ref didn't pin or what. Who cares? You've already interfered. You have the build up to the match. Because
we already had that spot in January at Sold Out, that god awful thing we had to sit through when Randy Anderson was quote unquote fired, but jumped up and counted it and was a title change, and they made the Steiners give the belts. We've already seen this. So I didn't like that at all. All right, Arnold, you can speak now.
Yeah, this.
Hold on, wait. No, I'm just kidding.
So for me, this was a beautiful cluster, is what it was, and I didn't realize this was no DQ until the first ref got his teeth knocked down his throat. I was like, oh, okay, so I guess this is what we're doing now. All right, cool. And yeah, it was one of those things. Like, of course, you get your conga line of refs, and then suddenly here comes random wrestler, or at least in this case, random commentator coming down, giving Scott Hall some sort of comeuppance, counting as fast as humanly possible, which, of course, the crowd goes nuts over because wrestling. And you would think a match like this, you got top guys in it: Luger, DDP, Scott Hall, Randy Savage. WCW, they're top guys. I can't think of a match that's been like a big match that Scott Hall has won, including this one, even though, can you really call it official?
Oh, I mean, Scott Hall's just there to be the actual workhorse of the NWO. He's the only guy in the NWO who gives a single shit about working with WCW and not just burying them.
Hogan.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is the champion after all.
Horace.
Horace.
Oh goodness.
Oh,
God. Just hearing that name makes me cringe.
Oh, you should watch Thunder sometime.
I don't know. I feel like seeing Horace, especially on Thunder, might unlock some weird childhood memory I've tried to suppress somehow. It's like, why is this back on my screen? I'm like, well, I'm about to make a therapist a lot of money. Outside of that, no. I mean, no. The match was fun. This is a fun match, so I gave it a B+.
All right. Well, B+. A lot of, I don't remember what everybody else said. We're going to move on to the main event. All right.
War Games.
Yeah, War Games. All right, so let's just get to it. We have the NWO consisting of Nash, Bagwell, Six, and Conan, who were the four in the infamous we're going to make fun of the Four Horsemen skit versus said Four Horsemen, Flair, Mongo, Benoit, but no Kurt Hennig because he's hurt. More on that.
Kurt Hennig.
Hurt hitting.
Hurt Hennig. Yeah.
Wow, that was a perfect pun.
Yeah. This was, I love the War Games format when it's done well. This wasn't it. And let me tell you why I think that. Because War Games is supposed to be fun to watch, and this wasn't at all. This was just boring to me, especially for War Games. If I'm seeing War Games, I want to see violence, destruction, some blood, maybe a little bit, somebody get busted open, something. But there was no reason to have this in a cage until the very last 30 seconds. But that's just me and my opinions. But I think our three guests may have a little more to say about this one with their knowledge. John, did you want to go first?
I will go first. Hold on a second.
As he drinks to prepare himself
for this no doubt long, in-depth review of War Games.
The main event. Damn. I gave it a B.
So here's to build off of what you said. Like it had its moments of like they did amp up what they were doing, and it was violent and it was a brawl, but it was very generic. It very much felt like the style of match of like a Rumble where everyone is just kick punching each other and there's no creativity. There was no creativity to this. It started out with Buff, and I'll give Buff credit. Buff got destroyed by Benoit for the first 5 minutes of this match. Buff was flying around the ring into the cage, getting his absolute ass kicked. And then Benoit immediately afterwards got his absolute ass kicked by Conan and Buff once Conan came in to swing the odds. Benoit was actually one of my MVPs of this match. If there was an MVP on each side, he was the MVP of the Horseman side, and it wasn't even close. And then X-Pac came in Six came in, and he was the MVP of the other side because he was like getting thrown into the ceiling and absolutely getting destroyed for a while. But like, again, there was no creativity. It was just guys. It was just the next guy comes in and then a guy gets beat up and then a guy gets beat up and then a guy gets beat up. There was no, like, I'm saying they got destroyed, but like there was no big like spot or like big creative thing of like two guys pick a guy up and throw the guy into the wall. Like there was none of that. It was just like very generic. There was a point where they threw Six over the ropes and he just fell into that. Like there was a horrifying gap between the ring and the apron and the cage that I thought Six was going to die on when he got thrown over the ropes. Cause man, that could have really screwed somebody up.
Yeah, I believe they even mentioned that on commentary too.
Yeah. I like this. The match itself, I rate as a C. It just was kind of there. Like it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it just kind of happened, which your main event shouldn't do, obviously, so that you could take points off for that. But I give it a C as a match. I give the angle itself an A. I really liked how it ended in a bubble, not knowing what's going to be happening and that this never pays off. I really like the angle in a bubble because it feels like it's setting up for the Horsemen and the WCW to finally come back and get one up on the NWO. This feels like the big final thing that the NWO would do that would cause the anger to swing the other way and finally give WCW the win. But I know it doesn't go that way. But in a bubble, if I was watching this, like not knowing what was coming, I really liked the way it ended and would have been very curious to see where it went. Unfortunately, I'm in the future and I know that doesn't happen. So like, I'm just judging it on this pay-per-view and I give the angle of it an A. I like the finish. Ric Flair, like he's not even selling when he gets hit with the cage. He's legitimately hurt. It's gross. I like the idea of the handcuff to the cage and that they give up to try to save Flair and it doesn't work. That feels like that's the moment that should push it over the edge, like I said, but it doesn't. Benoit is awesome during this. He's like upside down with his feet on the cage, like legitimately trying to rip the handcuffs off, and I appreciate his commitment to it.
I was afraid they were actually going to break and he'd fly backward.
Yes. So like I said, I thought there was everything before that was so generic that like it's just like as soon as the last guy comes in, the match is over. That's not how a war game should go. It'd be like if as soon as number 30 came in the Rumble, they just eliminated everybody and it was over. There should be like all the stuff that leads to the last guy coming in and then all the lead up to the finish. And it just kind of screeches to a halt. So like A angle, but C match.
Gotcha.
And I know Rad's going to be a lot harsher on it because he's the WCW guy who knows where this is going and hates how it leads to everything. But I'm just judging this in a bubble. Like if I went into this kind of with my kid brain of like, if I saw this when I was a kid, I would have been so excited to see how the Horsemen were going to recuperate and come back and beat the NWO. Because that felt like what it should have been leading to when you do this to the NWO in Flair country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's not how it went. And sadly, that's ruins it in retrospect. But
And I think the crowd had the expectation that Sting was going to come save the day.
they absolutely did. I said that when we watched it. I was like, they're waiting for Sting to come out, and he never does.
And he never does. And I think that kind of was a letdown for everybody in the audience.
Because again, that would have led to what I was saying of like, okay, now Sting joins with the Horsemen, and now we're going to have that big banding together to kill the NWO.
Which would have been better payoff to everything, knowing what we know now, but
yeah,
politics, but whatever. All right,
Rad. The fans were like, you could feel the fans like the worry for the Horsemen, and like those fans, like if you had pulled them on the way out, would have been like, I cannot wait to see Ric Flair beat the dog piss out of the NWO.
Yeah.
Like they were into the moment.
He wore this robe. He wore this robe, by the way. This exact one.
He did. It's actually almost dead on.
Close to it. You actually, Wade just reminded me of something. As someone who has legitimately been thrown from one ring to a second ring, which is how I got this on my thumb.
Whoa! What?
That's so being thrown from one ring to another ring in a match is absolutely terrifying and very dangerous. So I totally understand. Like earlier when we talked about DDP being thrown, they gave me some PTSD about it. But that's the kind of stuff when you have a double ring, you should be using it to its full potential. Having a guy leap over with a double clothesline into the second ring or whatever. Six could have springboarded from one ring to the other and hit some people. Like it was the most by the numbers war games I've ever seen, and probably there ever was. And that includes house shows where there were no cameras. So clearly this entire match is made and manufactured for the finish, and not even the finish of the match. It's just the Flair spot to get heat for the NWO. And I feel like there's so many better ways they could have done this. The fact that the NWO didn't need the heat, the world champion, outside of 5 days over the last 2 years, the world champion has been Hulk Hogan. We don't need more heat on a team that never loses. And as a fan watching as a kid, I didn't order this pay-per-view, but I was watching week to week. It felt like this was the time to start cashing in the chips that you've collected from the fans. Now you buy the Lex Luger t-shirt when Lex Luger wins the title. Now you get ready for Sting to come in and win the title. Like, let's start making some money off this. Like, the NWO shirts are done now. Let's move on. And for them to not give the Horsemen the win in Flair country, in Horseman country, just even with the finish, there's absolutely no reason why the Horsemen couldn't have won, and then they took Flair's head off. And so you get that win. You put over these guys. Nah, can't do that. Nah, we can't have them win. Nobody even got pinned, and they still couldn't lose the match. And the problem with War Games is because it's a submission match, essentially. I mean, nobody thinks about it. It's essentially a submission match in a cage, but it's verbal submission back then. There's no tap out. So it's kind of unexciting unless the camera's literally on the face of the guy as he's screaming yes or whatever, which almost never happens. It kind of runs flat because you don't even know the finish is happening until the bell rings. Kurt Hennig coming in, betraying the Horseman, feels so terrible because you don't get any time with him being a Horseman. He just joined. It doesn't feel like there was any weight to him leaving. It was just disappointing that he joined the NWO. He could have done that on opening night. He could have done that the night he joined, and it would have been the same idea. You know, it would have been awesome. You know, it would have been a great payoff at the very last minute if Jeff Jarrett came out as the last member of the Horsemen. And Jeff Jarrett could have betrayed them and said, hey, now I'm a Horseman, but screw you guys. That's a way better build than 2 weeks of Kurt Hennig.
And then you also don't get the payoff of, like, you could have paid it off in the coming weeks. It sucks that Jarrett's leaving, because now he could have been like, see, I told you should have trusted me. Like, he was the one trying to join, and they didn't trust him. And then the guy that they just let in betrayed them, and that could have played off into an angle, and it never does.
And the fact that just last year Sting walked out on the team during the War Games, to do something similar like that again, even though I just said that, but like this, they're doing it again anyway. To be one man down in a match where structurally they're always one man down already, they don't need to do that. It seems so superfluous, and it ruins the excitement of the match. You're literally taking away the quality of the match for the sake of an angle that you don't even need. That's only going to hurt people, and it's only going to hurt the merchandise sales of the babies. It's not going to bring any more heat to rematches. It clearly doesn't. We know Flair wrestles Hennig and then he's gone. By the way, fun fact, this is the only pay-per-view main event for Conan, Six, and Mongo McMichael. So if you ever wonder, has Mongo McMichael main evented a pay-per-view? He has. But we're talking about 8 men in the cage with no blood. It really is by the numbers. They are wrestling towards the finish, and that's it. And when you wrestle towards the finish, you're gonna have a very bland match with a good finish. Sure, okay. Yeah. Guess what? No one cares about the rest of the match. They're never gonna watch it again.
Yeah, they're killing time until the payoff.
This match was built to be a 30-second replay on Nitro, and I don't want to buy a pay-per-view where the main event is a 30-second replay the next night. That's bad business. That makes me not want to watch any more NWO stuff, and I already didn't at this point.
Yeah, we're way past the NWO being fresh. They're getting real stale, getting just basically an annoyance to, and not even as a fan annoyance, just do something else. They're a one-note band, and that note's getting real sour.
I genuinely feel like pro wrestling is about babies beating heels, and at this, I believe this right here is the point where, at least me as a fan, I'm like, why am I watching anymore? I mean, Steve Austin's doing really awesome stuff on the other show. Why am I on here?
And he's not even
I could be
wrestling right now.
enjoying my night. I could be enjoying my night watching one of my favorite wrestlers beat up bad guys, or I could sit here and be annoyed because I gotta go watch some more, heat to build up to a match that's never gonna happen. Sting beats Hogan. That's the big blow off. You know who's not in this match? Sting or Hogan.
Wait, Hogan's not at a non-big pay-per-view? Huh. Who knew?
It's his off month.
Yeah. And Wade's absolutely right. Sting could have made a big appearance at the end and saved face for the match. Came out after the match. It's something that send people home happy. WCW doesn't send people home happy. I'm sorry, and that's a real shame.
Maybe they will next week. Oh wait, never mind. Yeah. Well, folks, that was WCW Fall Brawl War Games from Arnold, I didn't let you talk. Sorry. Totally cut you off again. All right.
Arnold, you're not allowed to talk. Sorry.
It's like, well, that was it, folks. Have a good.
All right. Sorry, Arnold. Never mind. You're on assignment.
Nah, like this. I mean, honestly, the whole match. It's like you think about it with Sting the year before, like it gave me deja vu. And I feel like, for what War Games was meant to be when it was put in place a decade prior to this, is one of those things where it's like, it's like you're expecting, wrestling. Let's put it that way. Like you're expecting violence, Flair's in the match, and we all know Flair's a bleeder. Like that's just things you come to expect in these types of matches. And especially to do so in Winston-Salem, which is my North Carolina geography is a little off, roughly about 30, 40 minutes away from Greensboro, which is basically like the heart of Horseman country. And just the way that the whole thing went, it just seemed, to me, it's kind of like you're spitting in the face of those fans who made that drive down 421 to get to Winston-Salem to watch this. And of course, the tens of thousands of people who probably ordered this pay-per-view at $50 a pop. And just for them to do it the way that they had done it, this is just that. It's like Radley said, just a 30-second clip for Monday night. And it's like, well, how are we going to capitalize on this? Find out this week. Well, I mean, if anything, there's going to be a feud with Kurt Hennig and Ric Flair. That's kind of obvious. Because, I mean, who else is he going to have a feud with in the Horsemen? Mongo? Nah, no, I don't think so.
That happens tomorrow night.
Right. And it's like, and we've already seen this Horseman NWO thing. So there's that. And Drew, I believe you brought this up a while back, where it seems like since the NWO has become a thing, the Horsemen, where they were like the top guys for the longest time, or top stables, kind of got moved down to mid-card status. And that's one thing I never got, because it's like, you think about it, it's like realistically, and this is just my opinion, if it weren't for the Horsemen, WCW wouldn't have been where they were in '97. That's for sure. Because I mean, you go back and watch any of those old clips from WCW or even pre-WCW NWA kind of territory there. You'll see Shivani with the same hair he had in '97 with a mustache, usually talking to Rick, Arn, Ole. He's talking to somebody, and it's usually a Horseman. So why are they essentially jobbing out to the NWO outside of the fact that somebody decided to give certain wrestlers, creative freedom in their contracts? And again, like Rad said, nobody got pinned.
And
how did you still lose? I don't get it.
One other thing too we didn't even mention is, like, it doesn't even make sense why Flair would want to bring Hennig in to the Horsemen, because the last interaction they've had in wrestling was Hennig beating Flair in a loser leaves the company match in WWF. So why is Flair even bringing this guy into the Horsemen, and why is he trusting him to bring him in? It makes him look stupid. I know this is that era of like, if it happened more than a few years ago, it never happened. But I think they even bring it up in the build-up for this match. So it's not like
that they've crossed in the past, like vague reference, but they reference it technically.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It like, it doesn't even make sense on a surface level.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to make one last point, and it's this. Did this feel like a War Games match to anybody else? I mean, I know what it was, but did it have that feel?
No, like I said, it felt like a rumble in a cage.
Yeah. And Radley, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I do believe that War Games match wasn't it created by Dusty basically for the Horsemen as a big blow off match?
So the War Games is essentially a Dusty idea created from Road Warriors Beyond Thunderdome. That's where he got the idea from. And it's meant to be specifically for the Horsemen. That's why it's double cage, because he figured 8 people, there's 4 Horsemen, it's 4. That's why it's double ring, double cage. And the concept of the people going in one at a time was eventually taken as for the Rumble. And I think he's like literally said that they took that from War Games. So the whole idea is to have that exciting moment of Horseman's in, here comes the exciting babyface. Now Horseman's in, here comes the exciting babyface, back and forth, back and forth. That's why the Horsemen are always in the War Games. It is literally their match because there are no other giant factions until the mid-90s. And then this happens where the Horsemen are back, but they've clearly just been rebuilt to be fodder for the NWO. And it sucks looking back now to see that being the case. They didn't put Kurt Hennig in and then decide next week, oh, we shouldn't have done that. Well, we'll just take him out. Like, this is clearly a plan. This is clearly still an era where WCW is putting long-term storytelling at the forefront. It's a shame that ends in about 4 months, but the fact that they're still doing that and then they're not trying to give a payoff at all. They're continuing to extend a long-term angle where they don't even know what the payoff is. Eric Bischoff has been quoted to saying in the past where he didn't know when Sting was going to beat Hogan. He said the original plan was supposed to be Super Brawl 97. That clearly didn't happen. Jeff Jarrett being there, having that angle, and then having no payoff is so disappointing. There's so much bad stuff. Clearly this match, good, bad, in middle, whatever you want to say, was so mediocre that they never had a proper War Games again in the company's history, and it didn't come back to pay-per-view or streaming, if you want to put it that way, until NXT. I say, some people would say this match killed War Games. I think it's already dead. They clearly don't care. They're using it as an advertising tool and an angle, and not a piece of art or a way to get anybody over. So to me, War Games died in 96, and that's like, I mean, there's a great moment in that War Games, I guess you could say, for that one, but that's not spectacular either. So the War Games is dead. Sorry. That's what this is. This is the death of the War Games.
Yep. Well, speaking of things that need to die, it's getting late at night, and I think this episode probably needs to be put out the pasture. So I think that's going to be our end of work.
The show as a whole, or just?
Oh yeah, God, I'm a shitty host. Good Lord, yeah. So yeah, we got to rate this show as a whole. For me, it's one of those that's like the appetizers were pretty good, and then just the main course went downhill, and then the dessert was just a big steaming pile of dog shit. So I'm going to give this one probably just a straight C. I mean, it started off with some potential and just slowly slid down the hill from there.
I figure if using the the letter grades to like a number grade, I probably would give this show as a whole about like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. B minus. I'm just gonna give it a B minus as a whole. The first half of the show is good. The second half just gets worse. But the first half of the show has 2 or 3 matches that are really good, and the stuff on the back half, other than War Games, isn't bad enough to ruin that. So like B plus or B minus. Sorry, B minus.
I don't even know if I gave my grade for War Games. Did I?
Oh,
I don't think
A plus, right?
No, C minus. C minus for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fair. C match. It's a C match.
C. It's the ultimate middle ground. C. This is a show of two halves. If the show ended after Jared Dean Malenko, we're talking about like an A minus A show to me.
Agreed.
Unfortunately, the other half happened, and we can't escape it. So, with grades, I feel like some matches were fantastic, but then some matches were mediocre. I don't think anything was downright terrible, but War Games was the most mediocre. And then there was a lot of mediocre stuff in between. So I give it the most mediocre number plus a little bit. It's a C plus. I said number, but I meant.
Yeah. I read. Yeah, no problem.
John, what do you give this? What kind of weird reason for it?
Well, Wade,
John gives this show 3 Z's for he's going to sleep.
No, if I look at the grades that I gave each match, I averaged that out. I mean, honestly, it comes out to like a B. So that's what I'm going to go with. There's no other reasoning behind it. A B.
That's fair.
And just like this show, that was just a tad bit disappointing because I was expecting so much more. Just kidding, just messing. All right, Arnold.
For sure. If there's one thing that it seems more noticeable now that I've gone back and watched them, WCW pay-per-views seem to have the same formula where it's like the opener is just solid. It is solid. The mid-card is decent. Not too many gripes. You might have a botch here and there, but it's the mid-card. What do you expect? And then it seems like when you get to the top of the card, things just kind of sometimes they plateau. And it's like, okay, I can dig this. And then sometimes it just kind of, slide back downhill a little bit. This is one of those where it kind of slid downhill there for a second, and then it kind of plateaued and flatlined. Like, not necessarily flatline as in like, oh, this is god awful, because it wasn't a god awful pay-per-view.
Oh, we'll get there eventually.
Oh, we will get there. I was thinking sin, but
greed.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, I'm not even going that far ahead. I'm talking about next month when I've got to watch Hogan and Piper in a cage.
Yeah, that too.
In 97.
Age in the cage, as Jim Cornette called it.
And yeah, this is one of those ones where you're starting to see the beginnings of the NWO power trip that only gets worse as we progress through time. And this is it, because you're talking about basically one of the pillars of this company getting essentially jobbed out to these, well, I guess in comparison, young whippersnappers. And to me, that just kind of, it left a sour taste in my mouth at the end. Like the main event, for what it was, it's like I said, War Games is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be crazy. Like, what's going to happen? Instead of what we got, essentially, where it's like, yeah, Hennig's only been with the Horsemen for 2 weeks and he's already betrayed him. Like, give us time to build trust in him. Let him be the enforcer. And then suddenly he just turns his back on Flair and them at like Starrcade or something. That would have been more like a, oh my God, what just happened? Instead of, well, kind of saw that coming. You were with the NWO a month ago. Overall, though, it was a C. It was a C.
Yep. I think, yeah, mediocre is a good. I think whoever used the word mediocre gets was dead on. Was that you, Radley?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
It's-
that's perfectly.
it's
That should be the
story of-
tagline.
Yep, it's the story of WCW of that era. Like even as a kid, I would watch the first half of Nitro and the second half of Raw.
Yep.
And that formula stays true on this show. It is a first half heavy show. And the main event, I think even as a kid, I used to refer to the main eventers in WCW. It was wheelchair wrestling because everyone was ancient and old. And I didn't want to see them. Even as a kid, I didn't want to see them.
Yeah.
You know, it's bad when your mom walks in the room. It's like, oh, I remember watching them. It's like,
Yeah. My mom would walk in and be like, oh, is Ricky the Steamboat Dragon on this show? And I'd be like, that's not his name. And also, no.
and then one day he shows up. It's
And
like,
that's a real thing. My mom thought his nickname was the Steamboat. And his name was Ricky Dragon.
Steamboat is a weird last name. I'm not gonna hate on that too much.
So yeah, it was always funny because my mom would be like, yeah, you know, I watched wrestling when I was younger. I remember Jake the Snake, you know, Dusty Rhodes, and you just name these guys off, and then it's like you turn to TNT, and it's like, you talking about him?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they're there, with the exception of
My dad was weird. He always just said nicknames. So when Randy Orton was on, he's like, "Oh, you watching Viper wrestle?" Very weird. Very weird.
All right. Well, round number 2, I'm going to say that's probably going to be the end of us, or we could probably just go all night. But I've got to sleep.
Just gonna kill yourselves? Jesus, that was grim. That was a grim. Well, that's probably gonna be the end of us, guys. We're just
That's
gonna
it.
go.
That's it.
We've canceled another show.
We're officially. Disco finally got his wish. All 5 of us are now canceled. We're done.
We've killed another company, Red.
That's what we do. It's our thing.
All right.
Another company down the drain.
Fortune the territories.
All right.
I want to say something real quick. You can actually watch WCW Thunder Buddies. I want to just do a quick plug.
Oh, well,
Standing
Good
Eight.
call,
Plug
John.
on a podcast? What?
John woke up. John woke up.
Are you gonna put that in? You gonna put that in?
I'm
Okay.
getting there. I'm getting there.
Okay.
I was gonna. This is our plug point. I was actually going to segue
Oh, I'm
to that.
sorry.
You
I
jumped the
thought
gun.
we were-
Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, no worries.
no.
Oh, hell. Who cares? Anyway, so if you guys would like to tell our audience where they could find and listen and watch you guys,
Oh, you couldn't wait 10 seconds, John.
No.
this will
John's
be
gotta
the
get to
part.
bed. He's like, I don't got time for this shit. He's been in a robe
I'll
for
let-
the past 2
I'll
hours.
let-
He's ready.
I'll
for
let the dads
sleep.
go first.
All
Oh, wait.
right.
So you
All
can
right.
find the stepdads on all sorts of social media as a tag team. You could find us at Stepdads Wrestle or at Stepdads Wrestling, one word, not 2 words. If you search it with a space in between, we are not liable for what kind of weird niche porn shit you might find.
Can confirm.
Stepdads Wrestle or at Stepdads Wrestling. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, Pro Wrestling Tees, Instagram, TikTok. We got it all. And if you're looking for me, I'm on social media as at Wade Kruger. Kruger spelt like Freddie with the extra E in there. At Wade Kruger 1 on Twitter, TikTok, etc. It's mostly me just bitching about Disco Inferno and my hockey team. But feel free to say hi. I will interact. I like talking to people, as if you couldn't tell. And also at Thunderbuds Pod?
Yes.
At
Double
Thunderbuds
check, but
Pod.
I'm pretty sure.
Let me double
Pretty
check that because I haven't had to plug that one in a minute.
That's Thunderbuds Pod on the Standing 8 Entertainment
Yep.
channel on the on
John will
Facebook
give you the
and
Facebook, but on Twitter it is at Thunderbuds Pod. And we will get back to posting regular updates. I've been a little lax on it because we've been kind of building a backlog so we can post weekly.
We're waiting for
so
Disco
the last-
to catch up.
Yeah, the last bunch of tweets
Good
are just
luck.
me shitting on Disco Inferno, but eventually I will be posting the link to the Facebook on there.
I'll be retweeting all those shitting on Disco Inferno tweets tomorrow morning.
Do that on my personal account, even.
And John, where can we be found on Facebook?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really care about promoting me. I want to just promote the Thunder Buddies thing, but you can basically find all the things that I do on the page anyways. But if you go on Facebook,
Then you are. You're probably
Facebook.com/standing A entertainment. If you look into the video archives, I mean, we have, I don't remember how many exactly, like 50 episodes already up. Like what Wade said, we've been kind of backlogging for, I mean, we film every week pretty much, but so we're working through there, WCW Thunder. But so we plan on doing a bunch of releases coming up with that. We also have this Fall Brawl 97.
Yeah, which we filmed as a special episode.
That we filmed as a special.
our very first special.
To release at one point.
Probably for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
We're looking to go into like live stuff. So we got some things in the works moving
like
forward,
a Mystery Science Theater style.
So yeah, any of that stuff can be found on Standing 8 Entertainment.
Yeah, Standing number 8.
Yep, Standing the number 8 Entertainment. And you can find all the other stuff that I'm attached to that page.
All right.
And of course, you two are also invited. If you ever feel like torturing yourselves, just let us know.
All right. Yeah. All right. Radley, do you have anything to plug? Or is that all taken care of?
That's all we got. I'm a stepdad
it.
wrestling machine. So.
All right. Well,
I take.
And don't find us at NEW in New York, because that promotion's dead now, and Alberto Del Rio helped kill it.
Thanks.
all right. Well, I think we're going to run out of time for our plugs. If you're listening, you've listened to us before, you know where the hell to find us. Good luck. If not, we'll find the end of another episode, because we've got 30 seconds and I don't want to start another meeting.
We stole your time.
We stole our time. For Arnold, Radley, and Wade and John, I almost lost it. I've been your two-time armchair booker of the year. Oh, we forget to tell our guests you're going to count us out at the end. Me and Arnold are on our backs looking up at the lights.
1, 2, 3.
Peace.
1, 2, 3.